Welcome to Final Fantasy Weekly. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this episode, we finally continue our conversation on Final Fantasy VIII. Apologies to all of you huge Final Fantasy VIII fans. A little bit of 16 coming out and a few other things sort of derailed us for a minute, but we're back. And we're very excited to continue with this adventure. When last we left our heroes, we were returning to Balamb Garden with the panic of an ensuing missile attack on two different gardens. So Squall leads a team back to the garden, and when we last left off, it was under attack, and there was a bunch of chaos, and we didn't know what was going on, and one of the creepy faculty people asked Squall, "Are you with the Garden Master, or are you with Cid?" To which Squall responded, "What, the fuck are you talking about?"
Come on, man. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, for all that Squall lives a lot of his life in his own head, he is very clear when he doesn't understand something in this particular case.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, because he could have just done it in his head, right? And been like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Shrug. Whatever. Not interested. But he didn't. And I like that. I feel like this is one of those times when he takes things head on.
Yeah.
He's very clear about who he's siding with and what his motivations are.
Yeah, a lot of what plays out here next, we're going to do our best to go through, probably not line by line, or maybe not even in the right order, because it's very chaotic. But I think, and it's full of gameplay stuff that won't necessarily be as interesting to talk about on a podcast. But I do think this whole event is essentially what shoves Squall into the next phase of his life, of his existence, of his self-understanding, right? That he essentially, through all of this, has to become the leader. Really, that's the end point that we're going to get to by the end of this episode, is that Squall essentially is forced to take things on head on, like you said, be logical about it, be in control, and his ability to do that and gather the right information. Even the next thing he does, which is to go and get info from Raijin and Fujin, people who, if he was maybe a more emotional being, he would say, well, I can't trust these guys. They're friends with Cypher, and Cypher's the bad guy. Or my arch nemesis, or X, Y, and Z. He gave me this scar on my face. So, but that's not the way he goes about it. He knows that Raijin and Fujin care about this garden, and rather than these weird faculty people, he's going to go and get information from them, and actually put them to work on helping out right away, which is a really excellent example of trust and leadership.
I also want to point out that if you tell the weird garden faculty people who look like they have no heads that if you don't immediately pledge allegiance to Norg, they will attack you, which is all kinds of messed up.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show who Norg and his followers are, what kind of people they are. And I think that's an interesting way to use gameplay mechanics to further a narrative, right? We talk sometimes about what does a video game do that a movie can't?
Right.
And so making a choice like that and having an immediate reaction that shows you, yeah, maybe I don't want to be associated with these guys, maybe they are the bad guys, is interesting. I like that.
Yeah. So Squall sends Raijin and Fujin off to warn all of the other students about the missile attack and that they've got to evacuate. They also Squall learns from them that the headmaster is missing. So that is his goal, to go and find Cid. I should note that during this conversation, as we often talk about, Squall is doing a lot of inside of his head thinking, and he does think to himself, like, Cypher sided with the sorceress. Are you guys all right with that? Because they keep saying things like, for Cypher, and our friend's going to come back. Like, I'm not sure they know or how much they know. So Squall is wrestling with that, but he doesn't have time to, bother with it. He's got to trust these guys.
Right. Yeah, I agree that it's a good and interesting leadership moment for Squall. And it does make me wonder, did they not see what happened on TV? Or maybe they did, and they think Cypher's got something up his sleeve. Their trust in Cypher is an interesting juxtaposition to their wanting to protect the garden and their fellow classmates.
It's also an interesting parallel to the fact that Squall is largely working on trust and loyalty for Sid right now, right?
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
we assume these creepy looking faculty guys are the bad guys. And like you said, the fact that they're attacking all the students randomly, and the more we learn, the more it's like, yes, they're okay, clearly they're the bad guys. They start shouting things like, "Those opposed to Norg must die." So you're like, all right, okay. But if they didn't have that kind of dialogue in here, I think it would be an even more powerful parallel, right? That you've got these loyalty is being tested right now, and that's really what it's coming down to: is who do you trust?
I also like that they use the monsters from the monster forest arena
Yeah,
to attack students. I don't like it, but it's an interesting narrative choice, right? Like maybe that's part of the reason they had that to begin with. Was what if we have to take down these soldiers we've trained? I know, let's use the monsters we're keeping in the arena zoo thing.
Yeah, and I think that was the tactic conceived of by Zhu, if you remember, who took us on our first seed mission during the landing. She gets to play a kind of support hero role throughout all of this. And I'm pretty sure at this moment she outranks Squall. But again, this is kind of that transition to where everyone recognizes that he's the best equipped to handle what's going on. So she's doing all kinds of stuff, but ends up in a lot of ways ceding, if I may, to Squall. So in fighting through the garden, we eventually end up back with Dr. Katawaki. Remember where the game originally started. We find ourselves in the infirmary, right, to check on the doctor. And she's there, as you might expect, taking care of injured people. And here we get an interesting conversation, Ira, because she's taking care of one of the, quote, bad guys.
Right. For whatever reason, some students have decided to side with Norg. How did they know? How did they know that Norg even existed before now? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. But sure, yeah. Or some of the, maybe some of them had befriended the weird faculty people.
Sure.
And so for whatever reason, they're following those orders instead of the orders that presumably are coming from Sid. And so they're on the other side. But Dr. Katawaki's like, why would I care about that? In the slightest. You're a student here. I'm a doctor. You're injured. Of course I'm taking care of you.
Yeah, it's the old Samuel Mudd debate.
Right.
Samuel Mudd was the doctor who set John Wilkes Booth's leg after he assassinated the president. And, was eventually tried for treason for having done so, but the decree of the doctor is you help the patient right in front of you. It's not your job necessarily in that moment to make a value judgment on whether or not this person gets to live or die because of their ideology. You're a doctor. And I kind of love that little moment is in here. Something I totally would have missed or not paid attention to the first several times I played this game, but kind of going to it finer as we do now, like, yeah, that's really good stuff.
Another thing to speak up for for Katawaki's character is that after Squall informs Katawaki that missiles are coming, she says, "Are you serious? Then I'm definitely going to have to stay. If anybody gets hurt, who's going to look after him? So not going to run away." Is Dr. Katawaki.
There starts to be a little bit of that old, who's going to abandon ship, situation here as people start being super heroic. But I will say the next little bit that plays out, all of this for me, again, I love it thematically. I love what we're doing with the characters and where it goes and visually and all of that. I will say there's a bit of stretching credulity. The believability of how some of this plays out is a bit much, but whatever. I'll get over it. Beginning with you just essentially saying, "Oh, by the way, Sid's been hiding in his office the whole time."
Right. Well, I do wonder, I feel like Sid had to know this was coming.
Yes.
So if I were Sid, I would, whichever of the students, highest ranking students I trusted most, would have been told about Norg and what might be coming and what we're going to do should the bad guys try to take over.
Right.
So yeah, it is a bit, some of it feels convenient for the sake of playing a video game,
Yeah.
But maybe it also speaks to Sid's strategic competency.
On some levels, unfortunately, the very next thing that happens is him essentially saying, I've got a hunch and I hope that it works. And then it does. But again, I'm the kind of person who can normally just get over stuff like that. But when I was paying closer attention to it this time, I was like, so anyway, you get up to the office, you find Sid, you have a little bit of a back and forth where you explain the missiles are coming and the attack from Norg is still going on and all of this. Right. And again, Sid is doing I'm going to be the captain and go down with the ship. If missiles are coming, then I'm staying here. This place is like my home. And Squall, inside of his head, is just going, dude, what are you talking about? Everyone needs to evacuate. This isn't a game. Right? And this is the 17-year-old to his father figure / principal, headmaster, the whole thing going, I don't think you know what you're doing here. And then that's when Sid just kind of gives this vague, there may still be a way to save the garden. Without getting into any specifics, and apparently without knowing specifics. He just tells us that the garden has some kind of secret.
Yeah, that's a bit vague.
Yeah.
Either he knows about it or he doesn't, right?
Yeah, if I was to rewrite this, just make Sid a little more informed. Just have him, because I get that they're trying to make him look incompetent here, and this is a continuing conversation because Squall does have to take over. But I think they sell it almost a little too hard to the extent that, yeah, you're entirely based on a hunch, gonna risk everyone's lives. Like, I don't love that, man.
It also calls into question who designed the place. And we know there's some tension between him and Norg. So maybe he's not sure that it works, but how could the place have been designed to do the thing that's about to happen and the guy who helped to design it not know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rewrite it. If it were me, it'd be more like, we designed it to do this thing. It might work, it might not, but it's a chance, and so I'd like to try to take that chance, and if you want to help, here's what we're going to do.
Right. As it is, it's essentially go downstairs and press this button. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it might save us from missiles. And that just, doesn't quite work for me. That said, back to the important thing that it is doing, I love what happens here, because Squall says, sir, I would like to handle whatever it is that you're planning. Sid says, why is that? And Squall has a series of thoughts in his head that I think this is him becoming a new man in real time. I'm just going to read all of them in order. He says, he doesn't say, he thinks. I don't know. Because you might screw up. Because I want to do more than just announce an evacuation. Because this place is important to me too. Because I want to find out your plan. Because this is my home. I have too many reasons. I don't know why. Who cares? But then out loud he says, my feelings have nothing to do with it, sir. Your feelings have everything to do with it, Squall. Oh. Yeah, it's so fascinating.
He's given us the line that he thinks he's supposed to give based upon being a soldier or a seed. But he is coming to an understanding that he has a lot of feelings and those are important too.
Yeah. So after a little bit more back and forth, Squall finally just blurts out, sir, tell us your plan. And that's when Headmaster Sid reveals that he doesn't really have one. It's, there's a button downstairs. Go and press it. I hope it works. This place used to be a shelter, but I don't know how. I don't know why. And then Squall thinks to himself, well, that sounds pretty far-fetched, but I guess it's better than doing nothing. And so the team agrees to head for the basement.
I also want to point out that after that whole bit of him thinking all these things but saying, my feelings have nothing to do with it, Sid says, you do have a hard time expressing your feelings. so it's not like Sid doesn't have a read on Squall. And he says that Quistis was right about that. So he trusts Quistis's judgment of Squall.
Right. So the team heads down to the basement, and again, there's a lot of gameplay stuff here and a little bit of puzzle solving. There's another tutorial at this moment, which was just, we'll do our gameplay episode later, but another reminder to me of just why this game was a little bit more difficult to penetrate, if I may. A little bit more impenetrable for some people. Like, I think the systems are great, but when you're giving another tutorial and you're basically halfway through the game... Yeah, kind of rough. So a series of puzzles and levers and things you've got to push, to get... It's a sewer basement area in a Final Fantasy game. If you're familiar, then you're familiar. And eventually you get to the big important button. So after winding through all of the basement and sewer puzzles and things, you find the big important button, and literally Squall says, well, no one knows what's going to happen. Press the big red button. It's like... I don't think it's red, but it's like that moment in Men in Black. Will Smith has no... I don't know. And then we get one of these classic Final Fantasy cutscenes where contraptions start to whir and spin, and electricity goes, and things start to move, and then a little ring of light opens up underneath the headmaster up in his office, and a platform rises and brings him up into a new part of the garden, and we get this scene from outside where the garden is enveloped in a bit of light and starts to grow like wings and stuff. I don't know. I can't do this justice. The school turns into a spaceship. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, it sort of lifts out of its foundations, I guess.
Yeah.
As the missiles are coming, right? Then we get a scene,
right.
Or we cut to the missiles coming in, and they're like, "Oh no, the missiles are incoming. What do we do now?"
There's a bit, by the way, with the missiles. We talked about in an early episode how James Cameron-y this game is, and it's like all the little details to some of the bits of technology, or everything's just its own different weird thing. Nothing is the way it is in our world. And the missiles have like little eyeball tracker things that move around and like lock on. You get this one quick little, and it's maybe 3 or 4 seconds, but it's just cool and weird. So yeah, the missiles like have an intelligence to them and are headed toward you, but then the school lifts up out of its foundation and begins to not so much fly as float away.
Yeah, that's a hell of a float spell.
It's wow, man. And yeah, even to this day, it's like hard to believe. It's kind of amazing that this happens. And it's like, oh, the school can fly. And even Squall is like, are we moving? But the Sid Master, I'm leaving with it. The Sid Master, starts yelling over the intercom down to Squall and team, like, I don't know how to control this thing. We're moving, but we're headed straight for, I think, the nearby town of Balamb, right? So Squall has to, again, apparently Squall has to do everything. He's the only one who's competent around here. Head all the way back upstairs, get up to the kind of new area that's basically very clearly like there for you. It's a captain's chair. It's where you're supposed to captain the garden from. And you figure out the controls. Again, I'm not going to go through all of it. And Squall is able to turn the garden so that you don't crash into the nearby town. And there's a great little cutscene of some people just kind of sitting there going, what the hell? Again, just imagine if you were in a small town and the nearby high school just lifted up and flew by you. You might be like, well, that's unusual. Another Man in Black scene. Anything about that seem unusual to you? Nah. And so Squall manages to steer it away from town, but kind of out to sea, which causes a whole other concern.
They sort of crash into the ocean, right? So they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They don't know how any of this works. All they know is that they, 1, managed not to get blown up by missiles, and 2, managed not to totally destroy the town of Besaid. Or Balamb.
Totally different. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Totally different fishing villages.
Same idea. And for a different Will Smith movie reference, it reminds me of that bit in Independence Day when they first get in to fly, when he and Jeff Goldblum get in to fly the spaceship, and he goes backwards at first.
Right.
Because he doesn't know. Oh, some jerk put the thing in. He just flips it around. It's kind of like, yeah, they don't know what they're doing. It's great.
So this whole sequence, there are times when I'm watching a movie or reading a book, and it feels like the good guys only succeed because that's how things turn out. That they didn't know what they were doing, or they had no plan, or they had no skills. They just stumbled along until the credits rolled. This sequence feels a bit to me like that.
Yeah.
Again, I would have liked a little better if Sid had some idea what was going on. Right? He explains that this building was something else before we used it for this, whereas I was implying that he helped design the place. So maybe this was the ruins of the fallen. Right. The forerunners, the ancestors, the Ketra, whatever it is.
Information from I think that's a lot better than hit the button and hope that Deus Ex Machina,
Right.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred if there had been a little bit more, not necessarily of having a plan for everything that's going on, but just competency. But it does also go to show that Squall and the people who follow him are competent in that they can adapt to a situation. They can think on their feet, that they're willing to try things out. We're not going to just evacuate and let the whole place blow up and who knows what else. So I appreciate it for that. But it does feel a little bit like we're just going until we're done.
Yeah. And I think, the first time I was just so blown away by the spectacle of, again, the school turns into a flying machine. And sometimes Final Fantasy just gives you stuff you're not going to get anywhere else, and so you just roll with it as being objectively dope. But yeah, it is unfortunate when you pull back and give a slightly more critical view of it. It's like, oh, and it so easily could have made a bit more sense and been a little more satisfying. Another reason why I think Final Fantasy VIII deserves a remake and a bit of a new coat of paint. But another thing that I really love about this too, and this has been a conversation around Final Fantasy XVI a lot, is the tone and pacing of it. If you've been playing Final Fantasy VIII during this segment, for the last hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, it's been nonstop fights, battles, several boss fights, the missiles are incoming, there are explosions everywhere, people are injured, right? It's just nonstop action for a while. And then you're literally floating out at sea, and Rinoa wakes Squall up from his bed in the he's in his dorm,
right,
and asks to go on a little tour of the garden.
Yeah, we're slowing way down here for a moment.
Yeah,
there is literally nothing else to do except float at sea and wait for whatever might happen next. It is interesting to me that the civil war in the garden has suddenly stopped. I suppose if anything was going to stop it, the building lifting off and avoiding a missile attack might do it. But I wonder if, like, Zhu had to sit down and conduct peace negotiations with whomever's leading the other side, right? Whichever garden members fought for the garden master as opposed to the headmaster. Are they being held in the brig? What kind of fallout is there from that? And we're about to go have a discussion with the garden master, but for right now, I think that might have been interesting. Who takes care of that, and what are the consequences thereof?
Zhu negotiates a ceasefire with Norg and company. Yeah, I'd watch that scene.
And those weird staff members. If I were Headmaster Sid, those guys would be overboard almost immediately.
Sure, right.
Not necessarily having to get lifeboats and water and whatnot, but you're not staying on my ship. You're not a chance.
But I do like the choice to, as you said, go right to the very small, very calm, very personal, 2 people in a room, just Squall and Rinoa, with no clear direction on what to do next, and she just says, "Why don't you give me a tour of the garden?" And Squall, being, well, kind of a dick, says, "Is this another one of your orders?" Renault says, "No, dude." I added the dude. She says, "I just want you to show me around, to get acquainted with the place."
He does still work for her, though, based upon the contract.
Right.
So it's not a totally unwarranted question. It is a little obnoxious, though.
Yeah. The first little bit of them wandering around the garden is just... I know this is an obnoxious tautology, but it is so Squall and Renoa. It's just her going, "This place is huge. Do you think it's bigger than Galbadia Garden?" And Squall says, "Who knows?" Renoa goes, "What's over here?" Squall says, "Cafeteria." She goes, "What about that?" He goes, "That's the parking lot."
He's really good at this. Man.
She says, "Squall, can you try to make it a little more fun? Like a normal tour?" And he thinks to himself, what does she want from me? Dude, she just said what she wanted from you. Just look, I know some of these women folk can play it coy with their feelings and emotions. That is not what's happening here with you. This whole women are hard to read thing is such a thing from men who are not paying attention.
There was a sort of a meme on TikTok for a while, a few months back, about that Spice Girls song. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. And there were some dudes who were interpreting that she doesn't tell you what she wants throughout the whole song. No, she tells you line by line exactly what she wants.
Good
yeah,
Lord.
And you don't have to, but this is what she wants. And some of these dudes just missing it. Wild.
Right. And that's kind of Squall's thing, is it's like, because he can't imagine being that way, he doesn't understand why she wants him to be that way. Come on.
Right.
Man. But then as they're doing this, they get summoned by the garden master, which is like, what? Again, I guess, some clarity would be nice here. What are the parameters of the ceasefire? All right, fine. We'll go talk to the garden master. Which is, of course, in the basement. So our team heads down to meet with Norg, and we see Headmaster Sid getting pushed around by these faculty people again. And it's like, what is going on?
Right. Man, as soon as I had rescued the garden, I would have gone to Zhu and taken control of the building. And this feels like a missed opportunity for Sid to... I don't want him to be a militaristic, execute all your enemies kind of guy. But this feels like very strategically inept.
He does get to call Norg a greedy son of a bitch.
Right.
Which is a little bit of fire from him. But yeah, this scene is basically just him saying, "I never should have trusted you." Again, we're getting like a little bit of their history, but not all of it. Even though he says, "Squall, did you hear all that?" And Squall says, "Yes." But it's like, I feel like we heard a third of it at most, but sure. And then Headmaster Sid just admits to being embarrassed that he's locked into some kind of weird, I guess, financial relationship with this bug octopus monster guy. I don't know what Norg is. I don't know what he is. This is a strange game.
It is peculiar. One of the things I appreciate about Norg is that everybody says his name in all caps all the time.
Norg.
Man, I hate dealing with that Norg guy. Why do you say it like that? That's how it's spelled, man. So Sid goes back up the elevator, presumably to his office, and we go to report to Norg because the garden faculty people said, "You got to report to Norg." I don't think we work for this dude, but whatever. All right, so we're going to go. He's been waiting for us, apparently. And there's a moment where one of them says, "Whenever Master Norg calls you, be sure to be there within 3 seconds." So they're under this dude's thumb also. You go to this weird sort of pod thing and it opens up. All right, I'm going to do my best to describe. First of all, Norg is not the only one of his species. I can't recall at the moment what his species is called. But there are these sort of conical blob-like people with yellow skin and long arms. I think they're meant to be deliberately ugly, but I don't think that's very kind if they all just kind of look that way.
Yeah.
And Squall, of course, has never seen this person. Is this the garden master? The proprietor of the garden? He's not even human. We don't know anything about him. What is going on? And then Norg talks much the same way his name is spelled. So
in all
yeah,
caps.
he's some weird noises or give your report on the sorceress. Yeah, it's very strange.
Reminds me, I guess, of anything. If it invokes anything, it would be Jabba the Hutt.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So Norg demands a report on the sorceress, and Squall he's very good at giving reports. So
Yeah.
he jumps right in. We failed to assassinate the sorceress.
Fail.
See, confirmation of Headmaster Sid's order was made at Galbadia. Irvin Caneus joined the party. We set off to carry out the order, and he's interrupted by Norg. Balamb and Galbadia's orders, you were fooled. It's explained Master Norg has known about the alliance between the president of Galbadia and the sorceress. He heard it from the Galbadia Garden Master himself. And Norg explains that the master of Galbadia Garden is a subordinate of mine named Martine. So Norg controls both gardens. Again, a lot of this stuff is unclear.
Yeah.
Even once we get an explanation later, a lot of this stuff is unclear.
Yeah.
So there was an order sent to Galbadia Garden to kill the sorceress. Assassination was thought to be the best means, but Martine used you as a last resort for the assassination. He gave that order to put the blame on me. So remember, there was some concern about when Zell accidentally gave away on broadcast television that he had brought down the wrath of Galbadia upon Balamb Garden. So apparently Norg thinks that the Galbadian garden headmaster, was trying to put the blame on Norg to get the sorceress to go after him.
Right. Okay.
I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this is all stuff I wish could be smoothed out a little bit, especially because when they get into the next bit, this is what becomes really important, but it's like having this information dropped on us in the middle of all this other stuff is a little bit frustrating.
The garden faculty thinks that the sorceress ordered the missile attacks. They think we need to calm the sorceress's anger. Apparently she's just a hysterical woman.
Right.
He said with air quotes, not meaning it at all.
Right. Yeah, the last couple of comments, by the way, I hope everyone got the sarcasm in our voices on the last two comments on those things.
So now Norg is saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. We'll offer the seeds to the sorceress, like we'll kill the seeds, and then we'll pretend to obey the sorceress. And Squall's like, hang on, we're the seeds. Why aren't we fighting the sorceress? What about all this training? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
To which Norg says, that idiot Sid dispatched Seed to kill the sorceress. And if you fail, this garden will be done for. My garden. It will all be over. That idiot Sid. Has he forgotten that it was I who put the money up to establish garden? Don't you know that if you put the money up for a thing, you own it entirely and can do whatever you want with whomever works there? I ordered the students to find Sid, but they sided with him. This is my garden. And Squall says, bite me, creepy old man.
You don't own us, you money-grubbing capitalist worm. I think is what Squall says.
Yeah.
I may have slightly
We might be
misquoted.
ad-libbing here a bit.
Yeah.
Norg says, then what is it? Is it Sid's and Adia's, that pathetic married couples? Which is
What?
a really ham-fisted way to say, oh, by the way,
It
Sid
really
and Adia
is.
are married and they establish garden together.
Yeah, I talk about clunky exposition through dialogue sometimes. This is pretty bad. This is pretty rough.
Squall at least comments on it and says, the headmaster and Adia are married? I don't get it.
Yeah. I do love that he's just as confused as we are. Reminds me of Barrett from Final Fantasy VII going, I've been here from the beginning and I don't know what's going on either.
So Adia the sorceress and Cid the headmaster of Balamb Garden are married and apparently founded the garden together, but they needed money and Norg is the one who provided the money. And now there's some tension between Norg and Cid. And Adia, for that matter.
All of that is interesting. It just didn't need to be explained so coyly. You know what I mean? They didn't need to. There's enough to discover. There's enough mystery in this game that this part just should have been clear. Anyway, we've made that point. But yes, that appears to be what's going on, and it's strange. But so for all of the battle, I feel like I understand why we're fighting Norg. He feels like he gets to run this school because he paid for it. But it turns out Cid is nicer than him, and so most people side with Cid because he's a good principal, I guess. Right. Sure.
But the whole time I'm wondering, wait, Cid and Adia are married? Right. What happened that she now wants to fight with Cid? Right. And why did they put together this school of Cid together? They did that on purpose to fight the sorceress. That's the point of Cid.
Right.
But now she's the sorceress? Was she the sorceress the whole time? What is going on?
Exactly.
And those are the questions that the game is going to answer kind of in what I think is a fascinating way. But for now...
Yeah, that's the great mystery to pose and have us unravel, right? That's the really good part, and I'm great with that. So, yeah, it really is interesting. So at the very least, if you're asking that question at the end of all of this, you're asking the question the game wants you to be asking. It just got there in a weird way.
So we fight Norg, we defeat Norg.
Yeah, so it's an RPG game, so you got to fight Norg, by the way. Boss battle.
And then there are questions. What the hell was that, says Zell. What's happened to the master, says Quistis. What's going on, you guys, says Irvin. And after a few more questions, Squall says, what's the point of talking about it now? You don't know what's going on either. This is crazy. I don't know what's going on anymore. I feel like a helpless puppet being manipulated in some major scheme. Which is, absolutely. I think after all of that, what they do here is weird and confusing and could be done better, I think. But at the same time, the characters who are caught up in all this recognize that they are being manipulated, that they are caught up in all this, that it's weird, it's incomprehensible, and they don't even know the half of it yet.
Right. It is supposed to be disorienting for them and us. And on that level... well done. This is a big part of the Squall is dead theory, right? The idea that Squall actually died when Adia impaled him with the ice and the rest of this is some kind of weird fever dream. A lot of it begins with how off the rails things that we felt like we knew before, like who was in charge of the school and that the school was largely ground-based, have now changed, right? Dramatically. But yeah, I think it is just the storyteller's way of putting on the table now, okay, we're ratcheting up how strange things are going to get, and we're putting all of these mysteries on the table for you to stew on for the rest of the game.
The other thing I appreciate about this is that we're now going to get to have a conversation with Headmaster Cid where he tries to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
To the best of his...
This is a good place to stop, and if there was an active time lore, God, if Tomes could have been in this game, it would have been nice.
Harpocrates should be here also.
Exactly.
What a great game.
Instead, Cid basically serves that exact role here, right? Where you can just ask a series of questions. You can ask about Cid. You can ask about Norg. You can ask about Adia. So let's go through some of these real quick. The conversation on Cid is basically what we knew. Headmaster Cid says Cid will defeat the sorceress. The garden will train Cid members. Missions around the world are just training for the final battle against the sorceress. But now that the sorceress has become a major threat, our true mission has begun. Okay.
All right. So that at least that's a clear goal.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Cid must defeat the sorceress, and we know who that is. All right. But wait a minute. Dude Man just told us that you married to her. What the heck?
Well, I mean,
To which Headmaster said,
you see her dressed that way, and then she did the thing with the door. I was just really impressed.
She's really quite something. No, Headmaster says, you are quite right. She had been a sorceress since childhood. I married her knowing that. We were happy. We worked together, the two of us. We were very happy. One day, Adia began talking about building the garden and training Seed. I became obsessed with the plan, but I was very concerned with Seed's goal, that one day Seed might fight Adia. She laughed and told me that it would never happen.
All right, so I want to point out that he says she had been a sorceress since childhood, not the sorceress. So there was that other sorceress from however many years ago,
right?
That we fought from Estar, right? Or that some folks fought from Estar. Not entirely clear to me at the moment. Again, Harpocrates. So not everybody who is a sorceress is the sorceress, presumably. But then Adia becomes the sorceress. So what does that mean? That's not a question that's answered here.
Yeah. And again, if it was, quote, real, almost certainly Squall would ask that, right? Like, wait, so how many sorceresses are there and how does this whole thing work? But that's a mystery for...
I also think it's really cool that Adia is being proactive about maybe having to rein herself in.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought to immediately consider.
And that Sid is all on board. I don't think this was his plan for his life.
Right.
But Adia said, you know what, Sid, my love, my darling, I might have to be stopped one day. I have an idea on how we could do that. And then Sid makes it his entire life.
Right.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, really is. She can ask about Norg, and Sid explains that he is from the Shumi tribe.
There it is.
That's what his people are called.
Yeah.
There we go. And that he was a black sheep of his tribe, but became interested in building and running a garden. He says, we hit it off thanks to his funding, and it was completed. We needed an enormous amount of funds to run the garden, so we began dispatching seeds all around the world as a means of supporting the garden. Remember, this whole thing is a capitalistic, militaristic enterprise.
Yeah.
The way you make money in this game is that you just get paid, right? Monsters don't drop it and stuff. You get paid by the garden. You've been getting paid by Norg this whole time, right? Like I do wish they would dive a little more into it, and it's not Final Fantasy VII, it's Final Fantasy VIII, so it's not quite as dramatic of a takedown of capitalism, but this little bit here where he says, Norg's idea was right on the money, even that phrase of it, right on the money. An enormous amount of capital began flowing into the garden, and the garden began to change, lost sight of our high ideals. The truth was covered up. In the end, it was my fault for giving up control.
Yeah.
Money can do a lot of things, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I drew the parallel an episode or two back about it being kind of like Xavier's Institute. Xavier's Institute is about running a school for people. It's not necessarily about being the X-Men, but also the X-Men are a part of it. So imagine if Xavier was not independently wealthy and he needed someone to fund him, and he got, who was Kevin Bacon's character in the in First Class? The Hellfire Club
Sebastian
guy. Shaw, right? Yeah. So he got
Sebastian Shaw.
So if he got someone to fund him like Sebastian Shaw, who was like, yeah, absolutely, this makes perfect sense. A school for mutants, it will protect them, it will give them somewhere where they can just grow up and beat kids, but also we can maybe hire out some of their abilities every once in a while. Nothing nefarious to begin with.
Sure.
Right? We're not sending Kitty Pryde, this 12-year-old girl who can walk through walls into banks yet. But, when we need to go in there and help somebody, the drug cartels, whomever bad guys of some other country are trying to take over this nation. You don't want that, do you, Charles? Me neither. And they're going to be willing to fund some of what we need to help these kids have a safe place to grow up and learn. So I can see how somebody might fall down that hole. But yeah, you do have to hang on to your morals in the face of funding issues. That's a big part of what's going on right now with the SAG and WGA strikes against the studios. Folks are losing money. And we haven't seen we haven't seen the fallout from this yet.
Right.
But when the people in charge are making so much money and are going to be offering content creators, I've already seen this on TikTok, some content creators saying, I was just offered $40,000 to go work for a week for the studios to promote whatever.
Yeah.
And most of the ones I follow are turning it down, but some of them aren't.
Sure.
So if...
Tough to turn down $40K, man.
Exactly. I think that's a fascinating admission by, or an explanation by Sid about what happened and why it happened.
Yeah. And another reason why I wish we could go back and do this more clearly and just more in depth. Like, even aside, if it was a modern game, I'd want the DLC of the early days of the story of Sid and Adia creating the garden, meeting Norg. How was Norg charming in the first place? How did he win him over with his all caps capitalism?
Right. Do all the people of the Shumi tribe talk like that, or is he the only one?
Right. So yeah, I'd be very curious to dive into that a little deeper. But the little bit that we do get is a pretty fantastic commentary, especially when it's paired with the more overarching theme of the militarism, right? And the concept of military outings as business, something that another one of my favorite video game series, probably my second favorite video game series of all time, Metal Gear Solid, dives a lot into this idea that war can be for ideology, but it can also a lot of times just be a business. And in this world, the vast majority of the time, it's a business. And business was booming for Norg. And therefore, it was kind of booming for us. And that's it just is totally messed up.
Right. Yeah.
So as you're wrapping up your conversation with Sid, Zhu will approach and say, Squall, have you seen the headmaster around? And he'll say, he's back at the infirmary. And she'll tell you, well, you need to go to the second floor and see for yourself. There's a ship approaching. Could be Galbadians, or worse, the sorceress might actually be aboard coming to attack us. So I have to go tell the headmaster right away. She runs toward the infirmary. Squall walks up to I gotta use my ship terminology again, Ira. Is he on the deck?
I'm not...
of the school?
Is the school a ship? Because I don't think the school has a port and a starboard. It's not shaped like that.
No. He goes out to the balcony.
Right. Because ships have balconies. Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Cruise ships do, I guess.
Either way, he heads up to the part of the floating school that he now captains, which is a real sentence. And he looks out over the sea, and he sees a Galbadian ship approach. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.